G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today I'm reading out a story that a subscriber has written to me, so we'll get into it. They write, in the late 80s, I was living on Bucker Road, just a couple of kilometres east of Nana Glen. It wasn't busy like it is out there these days. I would have been in about year 9 at high school. I was walking back home from a mate's place. At this part of writing, I have full goosebumps up my thighs and on my arms. I had no torch and it was a crescent moon. Something to my left, just off the road in the bush, caught my attention. Within about 10 metres to my left, the road had been cut up from the flat and there was an embankment that was about a metre higher than me. As soon as I turned to look, there was a strange, really loud screech, would be the best way to describe it. I clearly saw a massive creature standing on 2 legs, covered in thick fur-type hair. Its arms were held out by its side around the saplings. It vigorously shook them. An area at least 10 to 12 feet wide, and its eyes glowed a reddish-orange in the moonlight. It stood about 10 or 11 feet tall. I ran. It is the steepest part of that road until further down you get to Bellbird Quarry, and our new driveway goes off to the right and got steeper again. I ran harder than I have ever run, never looking back, but I knew I was being chased. As I ran up to the house, our 4 dogs went absolutely ballistic. I ran up the stairs and collapsed on our new veranda. The dogs took off past me, down the driveway, going nuts. We were the first to buy and build on one of the 3 100-acre plus acre lots on that side of the road, with one smaller lot down on the flat still for sale. To this day, I don't know if it could have caught me, if it wanted to, but for some reason it didn't. Then, a few weeks ago, in late 2020, I was camped in the bush next to the upper reaches of the Clarence River, prospecting on my own. When I was washing my concentrate I brought back from crevicing a creek that had no water, I felt like I was being watched. I saw an opening that looked like an old-timer's mine entrance halfway up a big escarpment on the other side of the river, only exposed by last year's fires. Otherwise, it would be invisible. After I made a feed, and probably 2.5 hours after dark, all the birds in that area took off in a flustered panic into the night sky. The river in that spot, even though it was low, was about 30 metres wide, but I never heard the water move. A few minutes later, something big was foraging in the dry timber to my left between my camp and the river. I just sat at my fire and listened. It was getting closer. When I thought I would be able to see it, hoping it was just a scrub bull, I lit up that direction with my torch. I didn't see anything and all went quiet. Then a minute later, more birds took off and I lit up the area again. That's when I heard it start to run. It ran on 2 legs between my camp and the river, but on the other side of the trees within 8 to 10 metres. It covered about 150 metres in about 8 seconds, and I could hear its strides were at least 2 to 3 times more spaced out than a human's. As it went, every bird in the area took flight into the night sky. Within that same minute, it was back on the other side of the river, moving and smashing a serious amount of dry timber and trees as it went further upstream. Once again, I never heard the water. At that stage, I could have cut down the 10-metre track to the riverbank and lit whatever it was up with my torch, I have no doubt. But I'm a lone prospector and my gut told me to let it go. I thought that in the morning I would go and have a look at its tracks, but when morning came I upped camped and left. Part of me didn't want to see the tracks, I suppose, as I like doing what I do and thought deep down it's just better to go. I went to stay at a place up the road. Instead, the owner of that property asked me if I'd spoken to the bloke camped over there, and I said no, and later that night I went to say g'day. I spoke to a fruit picker camped there, and he reckons he hears something on two legs some mornings that sounds human when it walks. We talked for a while and decided it wasn't an emu, cassowary or kangaroo. The next day, the landowner told me his wife won't go back to the creek I panned the next day because even though she'd lived there her whole life, because it's a family property and she'd been there for nearly 50 years on her parents' land, after the bushfires she was down there with the chainsaw clearing tracks and something spooked all the birds in the vicinity and she felt really uneasy and hopped in the ute and took off. I actually nearly got lost down there for the first time in over 40 years going bush and was glad to find my vehicle. Anything could be out there, that's for sure. Cheers, Bruce. The end. Well, thanks for that story, Bruce. That's awesome. That glowing eyes that you've seen, that would have scared the absolute hell out of me, and I would have been running alongside with you if I had been there. Anyway, thanks again, Bruce, for you sharing that awesome story. And that's it from Where's My Yowie. I'll get back to you next time. Bye.